Hi, I'm Nicholas from ratings.com. Today we'll be doing a review of the Dell Alienware AW3423DWF. We bought and tested it on our monitor test bench to see how it performs and if you should buy it. This monitor is a newer version of the popular Dell Alienware AW3423DW. There are a few differences between them, and we'll get to that later in the video. A lot of it is also the same, as they share the same screen size and resolution. This monitor also uses the same QD-OLED panel, and if you haven't heard about this new technology, we'll explain that soon. If you want more details, head over to our website to see the full review. The AW3423DWF is a 34-inch ultrawide monitor with a 1440p resolution. It also has a curved screen to bring the edges more within your field of vision. The main difference between this and the older model is that this monitor has a black body, while the other one has a white body. The backlighting is a bit different on the back too, but the Alienware logos still light up. Another thing is that there isn't any noise from a cooling fan like on the other Alienware, so the monitor is quiet while using it. The stand lets you adjust the screen in a few ways, which is nice for an ultrawide monitor. It supports the screen very well, and there isn't much wobble even if you shake the table. You can also route the cables to keep your setup clean. There's a pretty standard range of inputs with two DisplayPort 1.4 inputs and a HDMI 2.0 port. This is different from the last Alienware, which has two HDMIs and one DisplayPort. It also has 4 USB ports so that you can connect other devices like a mouse and keyboard. Before talking more about the test results, let's first talk about how its QD-OLED panel works. This is the same technology as the previous monitor and some TVs that came out in 2022, like the Samsung S95B. QD-OLEDs produce a wider range of colors and get brighter than traditional OLEDs. We won't get into the full details as to how this technology is different from regular OLED, but basically how the panel is designed makes the picture quality better overall. It combines a quantum dot layer normally found on QLED TVs with OLED technology to bring outstanding picture quality with bright highlights, vivid colors, and perfect blacks. Now let's take a look at the test results, and we'll start with the contrast. Contrast is important if you want your monitor to display deep blacks in dark rooms. A higher contrast is better. Thanks to its QD-OLED panel, it displays perfect blacks in dark rooms. This means it's a great choice for watching movies or playing games in the dark. However, the contrast isn't the same in bright rooms. Any bright light in the room causes the black levels to raise and blacks look purple. This is because QD-OLEDs lack a polarizing layer that other OLEDs have, and it's one of the trade-offs of this new technology. So you don't get the same perfect blacks as you would in a dark room when you use it in a bright room. Speaking of reflections, this is also important if you want to use the monitor in a bright room. Overall, the reflection handling is incredible because there isn't any distracting glare from strong lights. You can have a few lamps or light in the room and it won't be a problem in terms of glare. But because of this issue with the raised black levels, you lose out on the advantages of using an OLED and its perfect blacks when you have it in a bright room. Staying with performance in bright rooms, you'll also want the monitor to get bright enough to fight glare if there's too much light around. The SDR peak brightness is okay, but it doesn't get bright enough to fight a ton of glare. It's fine if you have a lamp nearby, but don't place it opposite a bright window. Having a high peak brightness is also good for playing HDR games so that highlights pop. The HDR brightness is alright, but it doesn't get as bright as the other Alienware. Small highlights stand out against the rest of the image, but the overall peak brightness is limited. We measured the HDR brightness with a few settings, and there are some issues depending on which you're using, especially if you have an NVIDIA graphics card. If you're using the HDR Peak 1000 mode, you need to enable both console mode and source tone map for the best image. Leaving those off in HDR Peak 1000 causes the image to look washed out. However, this isn't a problem if you use an AMD graphics card. Also, if you have HDR enabled in the desktop, there's a distracting change in brightness when you open and close windows, so it's better not to use HDR in the desktop. This issue isn't noticeable when playing games or watching movies though. Another potential downside to using a QD-OLED panel is the effect on text clarity. It uses a unique triangular RGB subpixel layout which is different from most monitors as they usually have all three RGB pixels in a straight line. Computer programs don't render text well with the triangular shape. Because of this, the text clarity is just decent and isn't as good as other ultrawide monitors. Letters can look blurry, and using Windows ClearType doesn't do much to improve it. Luckily, there are workarounds like using the Better ClearType tuner that you can download to improve the text clarity. Unfortunately, there's also color fringing that you can see with multiple windows open. You'll see green lines on the top edges of windows and red lines on the bottom edges. Keep in mind that some people don't notice the slightly blurry text or color fringing at all, while others might find it distracting. Whether you like it or not is a completely personal preference. Personally, I find the blurry text a bit noticeable when using a QD-OLED display, but as a writer, I'm also particular about text clarity, so I notice these things easier. Other testers and writers here don't have a problem with it, so it really changes from person to person. If you want to find out more, we wrote our subjective impressions about it when using the AW3423DW. You can find the link down below. Viewing angles are important if you often need to share your screen with someone else, or if you're viewing the screen from the sides. This monitor has very wide viewing angles, and the image is consistent no matter where you're viewing it from. You could use it for co-op gaming without any issues. Gray uniformity is important when using a monitor because you want colors to look uniform throughout. When you have large web pages open or you're playing games with panoramic views, you want colors to look the same across the screen. Luckily, that's the case here because this monitor has fantastic gray uniformity. The screen looks uniform all over and there aren't any darker areas. Black uniformity is different from gray uniformity because it's only important for playing games or watching movies with dark scenes. Having good black uniformity means that there isn't any distracting blooming around bright objects. This monitor has perfect black uniformity thanks to its QD-OLED panel. It displays bright objects without any distracting blooming around them. If you want to use the monitor for photo editing, or even if you just care about accurate images, it's important to have good color accuracy. Most web content uses the sRGB color space in SDR. This monitor has a specific mode that locks the colors to that color space. It results in remarkable color accuracy, and you won't need to get it calibrated unless you need the most accurate colors possible. You also want a monitor with accurate colors in HDR. The color gamut and color volume tests show us how many colors it can display and how vivid they are in HDR. One of the goals of QD-OLED is to display a wide range of colors in HDR, and this monitor does exactly that. It has an exceptional color gamut, meaning it displays all the colors that the content needs. It also has remarkable color volume so that it displays colors at a wide range of brightness levels. This results in a fantastic HDR experience, and it's better than most monitors on the market, including regular OLEDs. Before we move on to some of the gaming features, let's talk about one more part about OLEDs. Unfortunately, they do have the risk of burning in over time if you constantly display the same static elements. QD OLEDs are supposed to be better than regular OLEDs with this, but we're currently running a new burn-in test with TVs to see if there's any difference. The best ways to reduce the risk of burn-in is by using a black background, hiding the taskbar, and not having any icons on the desktop. It's also good to watch different stuff and not have it on the desktop all the time. Playing games and watching movies is the best way to reduce this risk. There are a few settings to help reduce the burn-in too. It has a pixel refresh that runs every 4 hours of usage, and it takes about 7 minutes to finish. If you find that's too often, you can disable it and it will run after every 20 hours of usage. There's also a longer panel refresh that takes about an hour to do and runs after 1500 hours. These refresh cycles can be annoying if you want to play your games, but it helps extend your monitor's life in the long run. Dell also offers a 3-year warranty against burn-in. Now onto the gaming performance. A high refresh rate is important for gaming. It lets you play games at a high frame rate and provides a smooth gaming experience. It has a 165Hz refresh rate, which is slightly less than the 175Hz on the other Alienware, but the difference isn't noticeable for most people. You can reach its max refresh rate with a DisplayPort connection and an 8-bit signal. However, it's limited to 100Hz with 10-bit signals like in HDR. But you can create a custom resolution for a higher refresh rate if you want a 10-bit signal. Another difference between this monitor and the other Alienware is that this one has native FreeSync VRR support, while the other is a native G-Sync monitor. In reality, this doesn't make that much of a difference because each monitor supports FreeSync and G-Sync anyways. However, you can take full advantage of your NVIDIA graphics card on the AW3423DW, and the AW3423DWF is the better choice if you have an AMD graphics card. When playing video games, a fast response time is important for smooth motion handling without any distracting blur. This Alienware has an incredible response time, and you won't notice any blur with fast-moving objects. This is typical of OLEDs because their response time is almost perfect. However, unlike some other OLED displays, it doesn't have a BFI feature to reduce persistence blur. Also, a low input lag is really important for a responsive feel when playing video games, and this monitor has great low input lag. It's a slight improvement on the other Alienware monitor too. While some people might find that the input lag is higher than other gaming monitors, you still won't notice any delay. While most people will use this monitor with a gaming PC, let's quickly talk about the compatibility with the PS5 and Xbox Series X. It isn't exactly designed for console gaming because it's limited to HDMI 2.0 bandwidth, so you can't play 4K games up to 120Hz on it. However, it does have a console mode that downscales a 4K image from the PS5 or Xbox. This results in a sharper image than a native 1440p signal, and the console mode is something that the AW3423DW doesn't have. But also keep in mind that the consoles don't support ultrawide gaming, so you'll see black bars on the sides anyways. If you want to use a macOS device with it, the monitor works well. It doesn't have any connection issues, and windows go back to the monitor when you wake a MacBook up from sleep or open the lid. Sadly, it has the same text clarity issues as with a Windows PC. So this brings us to the main question. Should you buy this monitor? Honestly, it's one of the best monitors on the market in terms of picture quality and gaming performance. You get all the advantages of a QD-OLED display in an ultra-wide format, which is great if you enjoy PC gaming. If you want a high-end monitor for gaming and you care about picture quality, this is definitely a great choice. It's essentially an alternative to the Dell AW3423DW if you don't want the native G-Sync support, so choosing between the two really comes down to which graphics card you have. This one is cheaper and has a few extra features like the console mode, but unfortunately it doesn't look as good in HDR and has a few bugs, which is disappointing. However, you can also update the firmware on this monitor, which the other Alienware can't do, so there is a possibility the HDR brightness issue is fixed in the future. Of course, this isn't a perfect monitor for every use. You don't want to get this only for general work and PC use because of the risk of burn-in and the text clarity issues. And if you're a competitive gamer, there are other options with higher refresh rates. You can even find other high-end 4K monitors with HDMI 2.1 bandwidth if you want something for console gaming. But this is what you have to expect considering it's not meant for these uses anyways. Well, that's it for this review of the Alienware AW3423DWF. I'm Nicholas from Ratings.com, where we help you find the best product for your needs. Ciao.
Interested in what's going on at Ratings.com? Head on over to our second channel, Ratings R&D. There you'll find updates to our longevity test, as well as deep dives into our testing and research philosophy. While you're there, don't forget to smash that subscribe button.